So if you think about large industry disruptions, we know about cell phones, and if you go back a little bit further, when we started using coal and oil for the previous start of the Industrial Revolution, there's actually been quite a bit of analysis on what makes for disruption. And it's usually a combination of factors. It's either technology cost curves, business model innovation, product innovation, open access, market dynamics, and maybe some other factors. What additional factor might we need here to effect this change?
Yeah, there's another great big question, but I'd like to connect to what Tanya was saying, because Tanya's been on the ground for X number of years. I've been in a corporate environment and have morphed into the academic environment. And I find that really interesting that I'm now looking at the questions I had in business from a different set of assumptions and some new ways and new ideas. And it's very sobering to hear Tanya talk about the challenges and how long it's taken. I think that the bigger the ambition, which is a reflection of the COP28 statement of intent, but the bigger the ambition, it's not so much whether or not we actually make it by 2030, but have we made significant progress? Because if we don't set a big enough ambition, it's going to take us even longer. So this is a long-term endeavor, and it may well take longer than 10 years, but we really have to be ambitious now because we have been dragging our feet. And I mean, this is also a thing about mindset, is we talk about we as if there's a general collective, and there's not a general collective. There is a great deal happening at the multilateral government level, national level, and that's actually what the stocktake is about. As a business person, I'm looking at the stocktake. I was reading it last night for the first time and actually going through the points. I even started to do word searches to say how much of this really talks to corporate business multinationals. How much there is all about government actions, and why is there not more there that is directing ambitious expectations and actions to leverage what sits between the citizen and the government in any country, which is organizations and the place where action in the economy takes place, which is business. Now, there is a lot that needs to take place in the entrepreneurial space, but I come from corporate, and the money sits within the corporate environment, and corporates are a huge point of leverage, whichever industry you're in. Mm-hmm. And to me, 23 years ago, the UN Global Compact was founded. 23 years ago, Ban Ki-moon said we need to bring business into and work with business. Now, I know that they're represented. Big corporates are represented at COP. Haven't been there myself. But where are they in the stocktake? Where is the clarity of where business needs to be working together with citizens, with non-profits, with multilateral government organizations, international organizations, and national governments? Where is that really captured in the ambition and the conclusions of the stocktake? Now, I have not studied it. There are many people in the room that have studied this, but I'm asking the question because I believe that is where are the conditions that can be created to shift the needle, and business waiting for more incentives or business waiting for the policy, which, by the way, does need to be clear. Where is that, and how will that happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, Tanya, do you have any ideas, or if we take a specific sector, financial institutions, is there a practical example? So what, with your knowledge of that sector, what would be a hard incentive, an intervention, a change in the policy environment that actually starts shifting the needle in the right direction?
Well, the first one is the obvious one: stop financing fossil fuels. Mm-hmm. And, that's not a new one. I remember having to convince, a room full of risk people why this was the sensible thing to do. Never mind the carbon emissions. Mm-hmm. This is a sensible business thing to do. You're managing your risk. So from a finance sector, there's so many, and the financial sector impacts across all sectors of the economy. So they really have to stay on the ball in terms of, what happens with any of these solutions. But the financial sector is probably under the biggest pressure ever known to not only manage their own emissions, because Scope 3 takes them off the charts. And I mean, there's an immense amount of work that has been done. But we still know in terms of understanding what those actual numbers mean. And for me, the biggest gap is between these NDCs and then what companies are reporting, and how do we bridge this gap between the two? And companies, industry needs guidance in terms of what actions need to be taken in order for those NDCs to happen. The two are, there's a big gap missing. But I mean, the financial sector is obviously one of those critical sectors to solving a lot of the solutions.
Thank you. Steve?
I just wanted to say to Guy's challenge, what I often say is you get people's attention with risk, you keep it with opportunity. And so if we keep this risk debate going on, I completely agree with Guy. People lose interest, they can't find hope in it, they give up. And the future, at least for South Africa, is potentially very bright if we take these bold steps to industrialize on the back of green energy. It's effectively the same strategy South Africa used to industrialize off the back of coal, except now you have a cheaper source of energy than coal, which is renewable energy. And you have those same kind of opportunities. Mining could be bigger. Vanadium, copper, all of these critical minerals for which there is an acknowledged global shortage. We have many of them, and SADC have many of them. So in cooperation with our SADC partners, we can ship those commodities through our country, through our ports. We could potentially beneficiate them. We could assist those countries to beneficiate them, creating bigger markets, spreading the electricity pool. Just the operation and maintenance and construction of renewable energy will create more jobs than will be lost through closure of coal. And so there are all sorts of ways that we can think about this as an opportunity, but it requires us to kind of focus on those things. And to Tanya's point about the NDCs, for South Africa to implement our goals in the NDC, we'll need about R1 trillion of investment by 2030. They're not small numbers, right? 4 trillion rand by 2050. And so there's no way we're doing it without the financial services sector, particularly if you consider the state of existing balance sheets. Private sector balance sheets are also a little bit maxed out, but freer than government balance sheets. If you think about Eskom's balance sheet and the national balance sheet, there's no way we're doing this without some cooperation between the public and the private sector in terms of finance and implementation.